let's talk about guides. So another reason why I wanted the rulers visible is so that we can start creating guides quite easily. Guides are a pretty useful tool inside Photoshop that help us to align things in the canvas. So the easiest way to create a guide is to drag one out from the ruler. You can click and drag on a ruler to pull out a guide. So you see this blue line appear, and this is a guide. So it's not actually part of the image. It's just a tool inside Photoshop that disappears once you will export your image. But it is a tool inside Photoshop that's very useful to align things. So you might have noticed that it snapped to the object. So you might want to just quickly verify in your view menu that that your snapping is on, and that you'll check what objects things will snap to. So my snapping is on, and that is why when I dragged out a guide right over here, you see it snapped to the active object. So you notice it didn't snap to this one, and I believe that's because this is the rectangle that was selected in my canvas. Whereas if I switch it to this rectangle, let's go ahead and pull out a guide from the other ruler. There we go. And it will snap to it, but not the other one. There. So that's a pretty easy way to create a guide. And you'll notice that when you put your mouse over a guide, the mouse icon changes, indicating that you'll move it. So you can click and drag on a guide after it's created to move it around later. If you want to prevent this, if you want to prevent accidentally clicking on a guide, you can go to the View menu and check this option here for lock guides. So if I turn on lock guides, now I cannot change these guides. The mouse icon is not changing and they are locked in place. What if you want to remove a guide? So there are a couple ways. First of all, if I want to delete a single guide, then I will need to unlock them. So I'm going to unlock it. So I clicked again on lock guides to remove the check mark. And now you can take the guide and drag it back to the ruler. So if you drag it off the canvas into the interface, it'll disappear. If you want to delete all the guides quickly at the same time, you'll find that in the View menu. And you can click Clear Guides over here. And that will quickly delete them all. There are other ways to create guides. Let's have a look at the View menu and see the other options. So we have an option to create a new guide and a new guide layout. Super cool, relatively new features of Photoshop with the guide layout, and I will show you that soon. But check out this new guide option first. This is to create a single guide, and you can choose if you want it horizontal or vertical. So let me create a horizontal guide in the middle of the canvas. The canvas was, I think, 1,000 or 1,200, so let me put 600. And since my units are defaulted to inches right now, so I did that in the previous video with the rulers where I changed it to inches, forgot to change it back, but now it's my opportunity to show you you can type the unit. So I put 600px, and that ensures even though we're working with inches, it's going to stick to pixels. There we go. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to change the units by right-clicking on the ruler, put it back to pixels. All right. So that's for creating a new guide. Let me just quickly create a vertical guide in the middle. Canvas is 1600, so I'll put this at 800. And now that we're in pixels, I don't need to type the units because it will default to the default unit. Cool. So that's for creating a single guide. And now let's go ahead and look at guide layouts. So I'm going to clear the guides. And let's have a look at creating a guide layout. View, new guide layout. Now this is a very cool feature that allows you to divide the canvas into an equal number of rows and columns. So you decide with the checkboxes here what you want to work with. Do you want to work with columns? Then you turn it on. Do you want to create rows? So then turn it on. And do you want to create a margin around the edges of the canvas? Well, then turn it on. And now you have the possibility to adjust all these values. So let's say I want to create 5 columns, and let's put a gutter. So gutter is the space in between the columns. So you'll see, let me turn off the margin so we can see it better. So you'll see it's in between the columns. You see one here, and one here, and one here. So 5 columns, it means there are 4 gutters. It's not talking about the space at the edge of the canvas. That space is called the margin. Gutter is really the space in between the columns or rows. So let me just reduce that to 10. And with the rows, let's create 3 rows just for fun. And I will change the gutter also to 10 pixels. Doing it this way, Photoshop will calculate and figure out exactly the width and the height it needs. So you do not need to specify a width and height. You only specify width and height if you need to do that, and then it'll kind of work with the number you have here to create it. So let's talk about that margin now quickly. I'm going to turn on the margin. So you see it now added space at the edges. However, it only put it on the left and right because I have 50 pixels on the left and the right. Let me add it by typing 50. I'm going to press Tab. Tab is a quick way to cycle through all the different interface input boxes. And 50 is good. I'll put 50 here. And that's it. So I now have a 50 pixel margin all around the edge of the canvas, and I have 5 equally spaced columns, 3 equally spaced rows with 10 pixels of gutter in between. Very, very quick way to create a graphic design layout to help you organize the elements on your page. Don't forget these little options here. So this preview button allows you to see what you're doing. So I like turning it on. And you have an option here for centering the columns and for clearing the existing guides. So if you have any guides already on the canvas, this option will erase them and replace them with the new guide layout. So if you don't want to replace them, you want to keep your old guides, then you might want to turn that off. And when you're finished, of course, you have the choice. When you're ready to go, you either push OK to accept it or cancel to disregard what you did and remove it.